All right. Hi there. This is Mrs. Praviti, and we are doing our target 1.3, which is our midpoint and segment bisectors test review. So your numbers might be different on the review. However, the problems are going to be the same. So we're going to go in order. I'm going to do some of it. We are going to do some of it, and then you are going to do some of it. So let's look at the first problem for this target. We're going to think about when we read it, do we need to make a drawing or is the drawing already there? So with 38 and 39, it's not. So we're going to make it. It says line RS bisects PQ. So we're going to draw the segment PQ first. I'll just draw it over here to the side. That's P and then Q. I started here because I know that's my segment, and it's going to bisect at point R. So that means R is going to go in the middle. I have R right here. And then what happens, it says, we'll go back to the beginning, line RS. So again, we'll just make a little line, and we can call that, we can just put a point here of S. That's bisecting PQ. So this way we can label some numbers if we're given them. It says, find RQ. So this is what we're going to be looking for right here. I'm going to put a question mark. RQ, it says if PQ, so the whole thing right here, if the whole thing is 14. And I'll just put that off to the side. So remember what we know. We know that both sides are going to be equal when we have a segment bisector. So we know that this side plus this side, or when we double it, it is going to be 14. So you can think in your head, this is kind of like 2 times x if we have our x's, equals our total, which is 14. And then again, to find it, we would just divide by 2, divide by 2. So that will tell us what each little segment is. You might not have done it that way in your head. You could have thought, oh, the total is this. I know there's 2 spots, so I just divide by 2. You can do it either way. So our final length is, yep, x equals 7. All right, let's look at 39. It's very similar. So I'm going to get you started by doing the drawing, and then I'm going to see what you can do. So it says line JK bisects, here's our segment, MN. So again, I like to put our segment first, M and then N, that's the whole thing, and it bisects at J. So I'm going to put the middle here, which is J. I'm not going to measure to make sure, they're just going to look like they're the same. And so we know given right away, remember we put a little slash marks in because we know they're equal, and it's line JK, so I'm just going to like draw in my arrows and just make sure to like label our 2 points on there. So we have that where this is MN and here's the bisector. So find MN, so the whole length, if JM is 6 3/4. So you can put this in your calculator and change it to a decimal if it makes it easier. Sometimes I think it's easier. So I'm just going to give you a little hint here. That's 6.75 because we know 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. So I know that JM, so this side is 6.75, and it wants you to find MN. So it wants you to actually find the total. Remember the total, that's the whole thing, given this little piece. So remember, to find a total, when we have one piece, we have to add the 2 pieces together. So yes, you should have got that 6.75 plus 6.75 equals, yep, 13.5 feet. All right, Now we're going to go to where the drawings are already there, and we are going to look at either setting them equal and solving, or we might have to actually factor. So a couple things to look at. Again, our numbers might not be the same, but the problems are the same. So let's look at the next one. It says find ln. So we want to find the total. So we are going to solve for x first. And then we have to plug x back into one side and then the other side and see what the total is. Another way is we find x and then we just double it because we know both are going to be the same. So let's set this up. We know we're going to have equal. There's the little marks that tell us these are equal. If I notice there's an x and there's another 4x, there is no x squared. So this is one where there is no factoring. So I'm just setting them up. X plus 9 equals 4x. So our next step should automatically be, taking the variable to the other side by adding or subtracting. So because that's a positive 4x, we're going to do minus 4x. And I'm going to line them up, and it's a minus 4x. So we're going to be careful here. I'm adding a number. That's a 1x. And it's okay. We'll end up with negatives and divide it out so we get a positive answer. So over here, we're left with 0 or nothing. And that's okay because we can solve 0 as a number. So 1 minus 4. It has to go in your calculator the way you see it. So 1 minus 4 is negative 3x. And then we still have this plus 9. I'm going to drop down. So then we have a two-step equation. So we just need to remember we get rid of addition or subtraction, the number by itself. We get rid of that first. And then we undo any division or multiplication last. So go ahead, take a second, and I want you to try to solve this two-step equation on your own. So you should have had x equals 3. If you did it correctly, make sure to look at my work. We took this away first, then we divided, and remember a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. So we're only halfway there. We still need to plug this back in, so you might want to write that. And we can plug it into both sides, the whole entire equation, or we can plug it into just one side, which I think is easier, and double it. So what I would do is I'd just go back up here to the x, and I'd write over it 3 plus 9, so we know 9, 10, 11, 12. We know both sides are 12 here. So if I label them, so then you can either take 12 and double it, take 12 and add 12 to it, or just think in your head, okay, I know it's 12 and 12. So ln equals, 24. That's it. All right, let's look at 41. Same idea. We are setting them equal to each other. I notice that it's asking for AM, so it's asking for one of the sides. And that's what we're usually going to solve for, so we won't need to double it when we find x. We also know both are the same anyway, so if we found one piece, we would know the other piece. But again, we have to solve for x first and then plug it back in. I notice there is no x squared, so this one's a nice one with no factoring. I just set them equal to each other. So x plus 20 equals 5x minus 4. Sorry, that's a little messy. That's a minus sign in there. So my next step is always going to be, whenever we don't see the x squared, is to take this 5x to the other side by adding or subtracting. This is a positive 5x, so I subtract 5x from both sides. Remember, I like to put a 1 here, so 1 minus 5, that's how it has to go in. We get a negative 4x. We drop down the plus 20 equals, and then I'm left with that negative 4 over here. So if you notice, I now have a two-step equation. Draw a little line in here, separate the work. I'm just going to solve my two-step equation. So I get rid of minus 20, minus 20. I'm always undoing the number by itself over here on the variable side first. And I put this in my calculator carefully. Negative 4 minus 20 is a negative 24. And then I'm still left with that negative 4 times x. My last step is to undo negative 4 times. So I divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4. It cancels over here, and I get x equals a negative 24 divided by negative 4 is going to give me a positive 6. So I'm not done. That's not answering the question. That just tells me what x is. I have to find this segment here, piece. What is AM? So I'm just going to plug it back into that side. 6 is my x plus 20. So AM equals, yep, 26. All right. I want you to try to do 42 on your own this time. And then, so you'll want to pause, or it's going to pause for you. And I want you to look at my work. You're going to solve for x. Be careful here. It wants you to then find MR, which is just one segment, not the whole thing. So solve for x, plug it back in. There is no factoring on this one. So yes, looking at all this work, our final answer should be 10. If we set everything up correctly. If yours didn't match, maybe you want to look at the work and see where you went wrong. It's okay to get a decimal answer, and then I plugged it back in to this side over here to find that. All right, let's go to the next problem. All right, so we're going to find segment AM. It's given that it's a midpoint, so we know this side equals that side. So we are going to do the same thing, except for I notice I have an x squared in one of these. Whenever I see an x squared, that tells me I have to factor. And we are only doing one type of factoring problem that we've been practicing for like 5 days now. So we're going to continue to practice this where we factor. So let's look at, it's the same steps to start out. We know that this side equals that side. So we're going to do x squared plus 4x equals, I'm going to put a 1 in front of there, 1x, and then I'm going to do plus 4. So this is the one where we have to take everything to the other side by adding or subtracting. So I just go one at a time. So I take this over, and I line them up. That's just an x, so I add or subtract it. So I do, it's a positive x, so I do minus 1x, and I'm going to line it up with the x term, not the x squared. They can't go together. So I'm left with, and I'll put a little line for my work, I'm still left with my x squared, and then 4, a positive 4 minus 1. So that gives me a positive 3x. And then it's equal to a positive 4. And now remember, in order to factor, I have to move everything to the other side by adding or subtracting. So I'm going to take that 4 over. And to undo it, it's a positive 4, so we subtract 4. And then subtract 4. I don't line it up anywhere because an x squared can't go with just a number. A 3x can't go with the negative 4 or minus 4. So you are going to always end up with 3 terms when you take things over. That's just a given. Cannot combine like terms. So x squared plus 3x minus 4. And then again, zero property says we can set it equal to 0. But essentially what we're doing is we're going to factor, which means automatically we know we have 2 parentheses, right? That's a gimme. We know that since it's x squared, we're going to have an x, and we're going to have an x. That's also a gimme. That is always going to happen. we know that we are going to have a plus and a minus sign. So I'm going to put plus and I'm going to put minus. That is always going to be the case as well for these types of problems. And then we just have to remember what we're factoring is this last term. So for this, I'm putting my t-chart for this -4, I have to list all the factors that when I add them together, they equal this +3 in the middle. So we factor for the last, we list all the factors, and then we just see when we add them together, how do I get a +3? So remember, we always just start with taking our calculator and doing like -4 divided by. We always start with 1. And then because we need a positive and a negative, we're going to do -4 divided by 1 and -4 divided by -1. We'll get 2 different just because of the nature of this problem. We know we have to do both just for this type. So this would be a 1 and a -4 or a -1 and a +4. So is there any way that when I add these two together, I can get a +3? So if I take 1 plus -4, I get -3. That's not it. What about -1 plus a +4? Ooh, I actually get a +3. I don't need to list any other factors. This is my winner. So because it's a -1, I'm going to put -1 here. Because it's a +4, I'm going to put the 4 here. So we have now factored, but we have to still find the correct x value and plug it back in. So remember, we find the roots. These are the roots right here. And then I can set it equal to 0. And I can set this one equal to 0. And I have to still solve to find what x is. Some of you like to just memorize if it's x plus 4, it's going to be x equals -4. So I'll show you the work why. With a one-step equation, I do -4 minus 4. That cancels, and I get x equals 0 minus 4, so that's -4. Remember, these are going to be opposites when we find the roots. Or you can just set it equal to 0 and solve. Again, over here, so that's a -1, so I do +1 plus 1. X equals a +1. I'm not done here. I need to figure out what x I need to use. So I'm going to take both x's and plug it in. We cannot get a 0 and we cannot get a negative number, and that will tell me what is the correct x to use, and then it also tells me one of the segment lengths. So I'm going to try to find, it wants AM, but that one's got more to do. I'm just going to find the other segment because I know they're both equal. So I'm going to take x plus 4 to find there, and I'm going to just use both of these roots. So I'm going to do x plus 4. So when I plug it in, I'm going to do -4 plus 4 because that was our first x. That gets me a 0. So that is definitely not going to be my answer. I know it's not going to be this one. And let's just plug this in because we have to get the answer. So we know that this is going to be our correct x. And again, I'm going to use this x plus 4. So my x is 1 plus 4, which gives me the length of 5. So if this side is 5, this side is 5. So my final answer, AM, equals 5. So I had to do all that work. You might go faster. I'm just doing it a little bit slower to find the correct x and also to plug it back in to find a certain length. All right, we're going to do the next one. Again, I'm going to walk you through this a little bit just because the factoring ones seem to be a little more difficult. But it's the same idea, except for we take everything to the other side. I notice right away there's an x squared, so that tells me I have to factor. So I put my little marks in because I know these two are the same. This actually wants AB. It wants the whole length. So once we find x and we plug it back into one of the sides, that's where we can either double it or just add it twice. But I do know that I'm going to have x squared minus 3x equals 18 plus 4x. I automatically have to take everything to the other side. So it doesn't matter in what order you take them. I like to take my x term first. That's a plus 4x, and we always add or subtract and line them up. So I'm going to do minus 4x. So minus 4x, minus 4x. And then remember, when I end up adding these together, I still have my x squared, and then negative 3 and negative 4 equals negative 7x, and then equals 18. So I'm still left with all that. Last thing, now I still have to take this 18 to the other side by adding or subtracting. So minus 18 because it is a positive 18, minus 18. And remember, none of these can be combined. So I'm going to rewrite this out. Just draw my little line for the work. So x squared, and then I have minus 7x minus 18. Okay, so this one's a little bit different because I'm not going to have the plus and minus this time. However, we're still going to do everything the same way because we're going to know certain things. So I know automatically we can set it equal to 0. I'm still going to have my 2 parentheses, so I'm going to put that here and that here. I'm still going to have my x, and I'm going to have my x. But this time, it's not as easy to figure out if we need a plus or a minus. So we're going to go through it, and we're just going to factor this negative 18. Remember, we're going to list all the factors of negative 18. So over here, I'm dealing with negative 18. And then when I add them together, the 2 factors, it's got to equal negative 7. So if you recall, in order to get a negative, we are going to have a negative times a positive. So it's the same idea with this. We have to list both factors. We're going to list one set and then switch where the negative sign is. So I'm going to just start with my number, negative 18, and I always start with, I'm going to divide that by negative 1. And then I would get negative 1 and 18. So I divided those. Negative 18 got me the 2 factors. And again, now I just do positive 1 and negative 18 because you just move the 2 negative signs. So if I add negative 1 and 18, do I get a negative 7? No. If I add 1 and negative 18, do I get a negative 7? No. So let's keep going. Next one, negative 18 divided by, I'm going to do negative 2. I just go down the line. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I get my factors on this side, and then my calculator tells me the other one if we don't know our math facts, and that's okay. So negative 18 divided by negative 2 is a positive 9. Your calculator will tell you that. And then also, I can just do a positive 2 and a negative 9 because we're just moving the negative sign. So that's my next set. So if I take negative 2 plus 9, I get a positive 7. Does that match? Not quite, but I know I'm close. So then I have 2 plus negative 9. So that gives me a negative 7. So that is my correct set. So this is where we know we're going to have a plus 2, a positive 2, and a minus 9. I just moved these here. That's how I figure out my 2 signs. And that's factoring. So we found the roots, and now we just have to solve to see which x we're going to pick is the correct one. So again, we can do equals 0, equals 0, and we're going to solve for both of them to find the x. Or you can remember it's going to be the opposite, right? So x would automatically just equal negative 2 because it's right here, a positive 2. Or I'll show you why, because we do minus 2, those cancel, and I get x equals 0 minus 2 is negative 2. That's how we got it. And then my other one, so it's either this one, x equals, and then this is a negative 9, so then our root answer would be a positive 9, or remember, we do plus 9 cancels, x equals 0 plus 9, which is positive 9. So all I have to do now is figure out which one's going to be my correct answer. So I'm going to plug it back into the side that only has one x, and then I'm going to see which number is going to give me a positive final answer. Some of you might just know in your head right here. You can't plug in. We're going to have to make sure, but I'm starting with up here. I'll start with negative 2 as my x. So I'll do 18 plus 4 times negative 2 and see what I get. So I do get x equals 10 for this one. So that is a positive answer. Let's double check the other one. So this one for the negative 2, it's actually okay. Let's check with the positive 9. So 18 minus 4 times 9. So we have to be careful. Do this in your calculator first. Yep, and then what we get is we get 18 minus 36. And that's not going to be good because we don't want 18 minus 36. That's going to give us a negative 18. So it's definitely not that one. So I like to go back and cross it off. It's got to be negative 2. And then that means we're going to use this side is 10 up here. If I plug that back in, I know I got this side was 10, which I know then this side is 10. So to find the whole length, if that's 10 and 10, we just add them together. So AB would equal, you got it, 20. All right, so this is going to be the first video for the midpoint segment stuff, and then we're going to do the midpoint formula in a different video, so you'll go to that video now.